Lane, I presume you've had the opportunity to kind of soak in Sunday scrimmage, watch film, things like that. Just what your general impressions are.
Yeah, that's why I don't really, love making big comments directly after, game, but especially a scrimmage because you got a lot of stuff going on. And so after watching it, what got mixed in there is all the scoring and points and, not taking into account when it was ones, twos, and ones. And so really after looking at it, and separating those, our one defense played pretty well. Obviously, that would mean our two defense did not, 2 and 3s, because of all the scoring. But, going back over it, there was some very positive things on defense with the ones. So, it also means our two offense got to get better also.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if your evaluation of things had changed. It sounds like it's a little bit different than it was right afterward.
Yeah. I kind of figured we were going to get to the point of passing it around instead of him walking over every time and grabbing it.
I was going to ask you about Henry Parish. I know he missed some time last season, but when he came in, he looked to be pretty impactful. What kind of a back can he be long term, and also this season, what are you expecting from him?
I think Henry's a special player with a very high ceiling. Skinny kid when he came in here. Looks completely different already, and I think will continue to. I'm sure he would tell you he was probably coming to FAU, when we left there. And, so we had recruited him a long time, was, very aware how good he could become, and how special, he could be. So I think that we'll see really good things out of him.
Just curious about what you can tell us about practice this morning. How did it go with them coming back from a day off and after the scrimmage, and just anything of any significance that you deemed this morning?
I think it was good. I felt like it wasn't as hot. I don't check the temperature every day like a lot of coaches do, but it didn't feel like that. So I thought they did good. It was a well-needed day off, after an unrealistic scrimmage, which had a padded practice the day before, which obviously would never happen. So you got to push that way early in camp. So good to see them respond. A couple of turnovers on the defense today, which we did not see Sunday. So that was good.
I know we're getting Momo later. How has he looked over the first week of camp, and how big a piece is he going to be if this defense is going to improve?
Well, we've moved guys around a lot. Have some, new guys at multiple positions, including a new linebacker, that has a lot of experience. So those guys are shuffling in there, and we're looking at also different schemes to play too. So we expect really big things out of them.
At this point in camp, do you start install with Louisville yet, or do you kind of hold off until it gets closer?
No, we don't. I mean, as coaches, we know there may be things that we want to look at, but it's not. The players don't know that.
Coach, could you talk a little bit about how Otis Reese is doing so far in camp?
I missed the last part of that.
Otis.
Who's that?
How has Otis Reese progressed?
Oh, yeah. Otis has done a great job. He's playing multiple spots for us, and I think, should be one of the best players on our team.
I know tackling was something that you brought up after that. Is that just? I think it was at your guys' second fully padded practice. Is it rust? How do you guys kind of get better on that?
Well, when we broke it down, it wasn't as much with the ones, but in defense, like I said right afterwards too, that's unfortunately, not to be expected, but probably going to happen. First time out, really tackling each other. So, we need to improve on that.
Lane, at this stage of camp, I know we periodically ask you this about the freshmen that are out there, the new guys, but after a couple of more days of practice and the scrimmage, you've mentioned a couple of guys. Anybody else impressed you that are newcomers, not necessarily freshmen, to the program at this point?
I think a lot of guys are struggling from a physical standpoint because that first week is so hard. So a number of those guys are limited. Especially the new receivers, are barely doing very much. I would say Marquise Brown has really shown up a lot, made some splash plays, gave up some plays too, but off the top of my head, there'd be a new guy that has really, shown some ceiling.
I know you don't discuss injuries in depth, but everything's still in the kind of bang and bruise category right now. There's nothing.
Yep, we have no significant.
You've got a future in Mike passing. I know it's still 20 days or so till the game. This week, do you push real hard and then next week start scaling back, or what's kind of just the schedule of how you conduct the rest of camp?
Yeah, we push mentally and physically this week, and then start to scale back mentally for sure with install, and then later in that next week physically.
Is anyone standing out in that group of pass rushers you have on the edge, the Damon Clowney's, Jaquivon Brown, Cedric Johnson type guys that kind of emerged there?
Yeah, Cedric and Clowney have really stood out. For younger players, have really high ceilings, really good pass rush ability, and expect a lot of those out of those guys at an area of definite need for improvement from last year.
Coach, question up top.
Coach Tom Dees with Fox 13 News. I was curious if you could speak again to the importance of the 100% vaccination and what a relief it must be for you as a coach.
Yeah, it really is, not to think about having to have different rules for guys, and again, that's a lot of credit to our players, to our staff, to our whole building. To be the first people to do that, and I hope inspire other people. I think it's almost made other teams, from what I've heard inside of programs, be competitive to match that, which is great. And hopefully the people of Mississippi. So I said it before, I'm sure it's criticized, but the more around it and the more information we continue to get, I think it's just completely selfish not to, especially when you're going to be around people, especially elderly people initially. Now it's any people to be around. So it's just how I feel.
Coach, what's the number one thing that you need to see out of all areas of the ball, just in this last area of fall camp, before feeling fully confident heading into Louisville?
I think depth. Like I said, the first defense played pretty good. The first offense played pretty good. We've got to develop depth, get special teams, figured out, and make sure that we're winning turnover margin.
I hate to ask another COVID question, but with you guys getting to 100% vaccinated, and there are a lot of teams, and I'd probably say most across the country, are still struggling with that. Have you heard from other coaches asking you, hey, how did you guys do this? What was the process?
Yeah, we've heard a lot, whether it's me, assistants, whether it's, especially training room, medical staff of other people calling. It's not like we're in a competition here, to win and not get other people like you normally would in sports, So we've shared those things, and hopefully it's helped even within our conference, which is probably unusual for fans to hear, but